recording from the Blanket Fort studio in the slightly above room temperature confines of my office. Welcome to The Future Last Week, where we talk about cool things happening or going to happen last week. I'm your host Wyatt, and it was week 21 of 2021. What if I said that jet lag could actually kill you? Well, I'd be a dirty, dirty liar. But what if just one organ got jet lag? That is, what if one of your organs comes out of sync with the rest of your internal clock? The organ could become dysfunctional or even fail completely. We all have a biological clock, known as our circadian rhythm. And so does every other organism on the planet. Over hundreds of millions of years, our biology has adapted to the 24-hour cycle of Mother Earth, and any disruption to that cycle can have serious consequences for our health. But according to this story, we can do something about this. A group of scientists, professors, and PhD students have developed or worked with a special drug that can slow the biological process responsible for our internal clocks. The drug is light sensitive and can be activated or deactivated with violet or green light, respectively. In a demonstration of the drug, they were able to show that a group of cells treated with the drug had their internal clock stretched out to 28 hours and could be returned to 24 simply by shining the deactivation colored light on the sample to get it to turn off the drug. Then they did it again, this time leaving the drug active over several days, and after shining the appropriate light, everything went back to how it should be. But now the cycle was shifted, essentially in a different time zone. A 3-day activation of the drug and then a deactivation at the end of the last day resulted in a 6-hour shift from its original timing. Now, all of this is great, but how can this be used to cure our jet-lagged organ, the one that is out of sync with the rest of our body? Well, they can reach the majority of your internal organs through your mouth or, the other hole. Sounds like a blast, right? Then they would treat the majority of the cells in that organ with the drug, and then shine the activation colored light on the application area. Then they would wait until the clock on that organ came into sync with everything else in your body. For example, say that a kidney was out of sync and causing you serious issues, like wetting the bed in the middle of the night. I'm pretty sure that's not how this works, but we're just going to roll with it. Let's say that normally you should get the signal to go to the bathroom at 9 a.m., but instead your kidney is given the okay to move ahead with Operation Yellow Flood at 3 a.m. all over your bed sheets. Because of this, you go into the clinic and get your kidney checked out to see what's going on. The doctor can tell that your kidney is out of sync and then administers the drug to your inner kidney and activates it with a violet light. After monitoring the organ, the doctor confirms that the cycle in your kidney has been increased to 26 hours from the normal 24. You know that you've been having issues at 3 a.m. and that normal for you is 9 a.m., so your rhythm is out of whack by 6 hours. Given that your kidney is currently on a 26-hour cycle, that's a 2-hour longer day than normal. With 2 extra hours each day and 6 to make up to put you in sync, you would have to wait exactly 3 days from the application of the drug and then go back to the clinic to have it deactivated by green light. After this, your rhythm would be in sync and you are no longer a bedwetter. Now, I know that was a horrible example, and it's not at all, or really even close, to how your kidneys work. But hopefully it gives you a good enough idea about how this drug can be applied and used in medical situations. Oh, and one more thing. The special drug they were using has a name. The drug that is responsible for making the internal clock of cells run slower, making the days effectively longer, is called Longdayson. Classic. Imagine you were having a bonfire with some friends on one dark July night. As you talk with your buddies, you can feel the heat of the fire against your skin and how it builds and fades as it breaks down the chemicals in the wood. You stare into the fire and start to think. You think of the age-old question man has struggled with for many years. How, you say, how can I use this to charge my iPhone? Well, you're in luck because we have a way of using heat to generate electricity using a device called a thermoelectric generator. This nifty little gadget takes advantage of the difference in heat across the generator by using a physical principle known as the Seebeck effect, where differently charged particles become separated and migrate away from each other and towards the hot and cold sides. This separation of charged particles works something like a battery, and thus a usable voltage is created. It sounds like it would be extremely useful for a variety of purposes, from absorbing waste heat created by conventional electric generation to boost efficiency, to wearable tech that could be powered by your natural body heat. Conventional thermoelectric generators have a large drawback, however. In fact, in order to be efficient, the electrical leads must be on the hot side of the generator, meaning that they fail fairly quickly due to the exposure. On the other hand, it is possible to use a different material that allows the electricity to flow to the cold side and be picked up by the electrical leads. This is called transverse thermoelectrics and seems very promising. However, that assumption dies on arrival due to its impractical inefficiency. But before you cross your arms and put on your pouty face because you can't charge your iPhone with fire like the cavemen did 15,000 years ago, there is hope on the horizon, in the form of a new group of crystals recently discovered that have the efficiency of conventional thermoelectrics mixed with the flexibility of the transverse thermoelectrics. With these new crystalline materials, scientists have been able to boost the effectiveness of thermoelectric generators by several orders of magnitude, allowing us to make them simple, small, cheap, and reliable for the first time. There is no doubt in my mind that this will open up a whole new world of advancements. Hyper-efficient hybrids that charge the battery not only with the generator attached to the engine, but the heat that comes off the engine as well, possibly pushing gas mileage much higher. A watch that never dies, that is charged by your body heat. Emergency thermal generators you can take with you on camping trips so you can charge a critical device with a campfire or a flare. Industrial-grade ones for use in power plants to absorb the waste heat coming off of nuclear reactors or boilers, and increase the amount of electricity it puts out. I could go on and on and on about what is possible if we can turn simple heat into electricity efficiently. The coolest part about these new crystals, though, is how ridiculously science fiction it all sounds when they describe what they look like and how they function. Basically, they produce a 2-inch long sliver of this crystal material and hook up wires on either end. Then they simply orient the crystal in a certain way, and suddenly it starts to produce power. No moving parts. In fact, no parts at all, except for the crystal itself. As long as the crystal is heated in some way, say from the waste heat in your house, or your car, or something else, it's basically emission-free power, and it's practically forever. Perhaps it is possible, after all, to live in a world where my phone isn't constantly at 5%. Let's roll the clock back to the early 1900s, or even modern day at a sporting event. What do you think you would see if you looked into the sky? The sun, the clouds, maybe even a bird or two. But maybe you'd see a big balloon slowly moving its way from one horizon to the other. That big balloon is called a blimp, and it's old tech these days. A blimp is basically a massive fabric balloon filled with lighter-than-air gas with control surfaces, engines to propel it, and a cabin to house passengers or equipment. Typically, though, if you wanted to get from Chicago to Cincinnati without driving your car, you'd have to take a plane. It's fast and in most cases fairly cheap. However, a company based out of the United Kingdom thinks there's a better way. Hybrid Air Vehicles is a company that is trying to take the blimp into the modern day, using technological advancements of the last 100 years to make an airship they say is better than a plane. They would like to replace short-range flights, such as the ones that you would ride going from one city to another city inside of the same country. But why take a blimp when you can get on a jet instead? Well, they claim that their Airlander 10 vehicle generates 75% less greenhouse gas emissions than a jet plane going the same distance. They claim that their cabin would be more spacious and comfortable, and not only that, but they dare to imagine passenger seats that aren't small and hard and smashed together with zero legroom, maybe even spaced far enough that toddlers can't kick your seat. This technologically advanced party balloon features tech like reliable helium-filled full fabric hulls, highly resistant to tears and punctures, composite structures, advanced engines and avionics, and vectored thrust. To top it off, airships are considered safer than planes in a number of ways. It flies slower than planes, making it low vibration and low G. It doesn't rely on single engines like a helicopter. And even if it lost all of its engines, it's full of helium and would not uncontrollably fall to the earth. Also, it doesn't need a runway. You won't need these expansive airports to fly a good amount of people, especially regional airports. In fact, you don't need a port of any kind. It's a blimp. It can take off and land literally anywhere. Airlander 10 also has some pretty impressive specs in terms of air travel. It can hold 10 tons of payload. It can travel 4,000 miles at a time, hold an altitude of 20,000 feet, and it can stay airborne for 5 days straight. But hold on. What's the rub? This sounds too good to be true. Why hasn't it happened in the past? Why aren't airships being used all the time? Well, remember what I said about the speed? Yeah, Airlander 10 cannot go as fast as a plane. In fact, its cruising speed at altitude is a whopping 100 miles an hour. For comparison, a normal passenger plane flies at 540 miles an hour, 5.4 times faster. However, even with this huge difference in speed, Hybrid Air Vehicles says that a 4-hour flight in a plane would only take 5 hours in their vehicle, but only if you account for all the time spent from when you actually get to the airport from when you walk out of the other one. I imagine what it has to do with is the fact that airships are slow, squishy balloons, meaning that even if they're hijacked, it's not really that dangerous. You could certainly try to fly it at a building, but it most likely wouldn't do as much damage as a much heavier, much faster airplane. Knowing this, security is going to be lighter, meaning fast lines at the airport. Since they can take off anywhere, you don't need to taxi, shaving off a lot of time too. It's lower altitude and slower speed, meaning it spends less time accelerating and more time cruising. Now, with all this information, I think it's safe to say that this might actually be successful. I can think of plenty of people that would be okay spending more time in flight and much less time sitting at one airport or another. Even better, since airships can fly anywhere and land anywhere, we might start to see flight within states. Why drive to the opposite side of the state in your car going a max of 70 when you can go 100 and sleep while you wait? Effectively making it the bus of the sky. Perhaps one day someone will ask, "How did you get there?" And you can respond, "Well, I took a blimp." Thank you guys for listening to The Future Last Week. If you like this podcast, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts. I'll much appreciate it. If you want to help support the show and get it off its feet, go to patreon.com/TFLW and leave me a tip. It'll be much appreciated. Anyways, thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you guys later, where we'll talk about this week, next week. Have a good one.